Wir gucken uns jetzt den besten Kanal, den ich vor kurzem entdeckt habe, Davo. Wir haben uns schon sein Video zu den Remakes angesehen von Gen 4. Wir haben uns sein Video zu Temtem angesehen. Und jetzt gibt es sein Video zu Pokémon Sword and Shield. Good, Bad and Ugly. Ich feiere den Typen so hart. Bitte abonniert den doch endlich einfach. Kannst du bitte einen Sonic-Kanal machen? Ich finde, es gibt viel zu wenig Sonic-Tuber und du wolltest das ja eh auch mal machen. Ja, wenn ich das mal machen wollen würde, vielleicht. Aber ich habe jetzt auch mich dafür entschieden, wahrscheinlich auf meinem Pokémon-Kanal einfach Sachen zu machen, auf die ich Bock habe. Und dann könnten auch einfach Sonic-Videos kommen. Ich weiß nicht genau, was ich machen möchte. Ich komme seine Stimme nicht gleich. Ich liebe seine Stimme.
Game of the Year. Pokemon has been around for
Ich liebe diese Stimme.
a long time now. It's one of the most beloved game franchises, and many of us look back on our time spent with it with fond memories. But just like the goofy two-faced man says, you either die a hero or live long enough to become an EA Sports game.
True. True. Leute, diese Stimme einfach godlike. Hallo meine Herren und Herrinnen. Hallo Jesus Fistus.
Pokemon Sword and Shield is not a groundbreaking release. I still had quite a lot of fun with it, and I certainly enjoyed some of the new features that it brought to the table, but was left a little disappointed with how much actual effort that Game Freak put into it. Obviously, one of the big talking points and reasons that the game garnered so much hate before its launch was the fact that the national decks and many beloved Pokemon from previous generations had been cut out of the game. But they did keep Woopers in it though.
Sie ist nur gut für... Ja, oder? Ich finde auch so ein bisschen, seine Stimme klingt auch irgendwie so, als würde der mega hart rollen.
Regardless, I could not see any genuine reason for them to...
Ich muss mal ganz kurz gucken, woher ist der eigentlich? Der ist halt safe kein gebürtiger Amerikaner oder so. Australien. Ja, macht Sinn.
cut over half of the Pokemon that exist, and along with a little bit of a lack of content and some horrendously lazy copying of models and animations from previous games, Pokemon Sword and Shield leave a little to be desired. Gameplay-wise, I think we got what we expected. The Pokemon games aren't exactly known for shaking up the formula too much with each release, and Sword and Shield don't do any major overhauls, though I think they do enough to justify being their own unique entry to the series. The big new battle feature in Sword and Shield was Dynamaxing, especially considering Mega Evolutions and Z-moves had been completely removed rather than even just restricting them till the endgame, and it was alright, I guess. It acted similar to Mega Evolutions, as you could only activate it once per battle, although only for 3 turns, and I think it might be a somewhat interesting mechanic in competitive, though all of the gym leaders and such exclusively used it on their last Pokemon.
Ganz interessant im Competitive. Gebannt.
So it was pretty easy to read. I was actually glad to have it locked to certain locations, because it made those battles feel a little more unique than just your run-of-the-mill wild or trainer battle, though I think it should have been removed from the battle tower as well, considering most of your opponents couldn't actually use it. Overall, I thought that the new Pokemon that were added were pretty neat, and I certainly like that Sobble eventually evolves into the Spy from Team Fortress 2.
Gentlemen?
The best new features that were added to the game were the introduction of the Wild area and the improvements to wild Pokemon in general. Wild Pokemon will actually pop out of the grass and appear in the overworld, which is really cool, and it means you won't have to just rummage around to find out what Pokemon live there, or in the hopes that you'll encounter the right one. The way that you could interact with them and how some of them would just kind of walk up to you and others would viciously chase you down was also pretty neat. Hey, what's happening? Uh-oh. It teased you with the inability to catch
Wie bekommt eine Wohnung hier, Dynamax Duraludon? Wüsste ich mal gerne. Ja, ist halt schon Luxus, ne?
Pokemon above a certain level until you earned the right gym badge and gave you incentive to come back and actually explore it, which is what made the wild area one of the most enjoyable aspects of the game. There were also Dynamax raids, which sort of reminded me of Pokemon Go raids, and they provided a bit of a spectacle as well.
Die waren auch genau
a bit
angelehnt.
gimmicky, but you could catch some decent Pokemon from them, and they also earned you a host of extra goodies too. The endgame features the Battle Tower, which is rather similar to the Battle Tower from Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, which I was very partial to. The fighting was a lot more strategic than during the storyline, and you could use your winnings to buy new battle items or even mints that could change your Pokemon's nature, which was pretty snazzy. In terms of the actual gameplay, and I mean the nitty-gritty of the battling,
Kommt mir vor, das ist ein älteres Video, in dem man noch nicht so angepisst war bei allem wie mit den neueren. Weil in neueren ist der mega hart negativ und hier ist der eigentlich relativ positiv eingestellt. So, ach du Scheiße, da los, da wo. 180.
Not a lot of it, to be honest. The routes are very short and even the wild areas aren't huge, and there aren't really a whole lot of trainer battles, which means that having a non-optional XP share was almost a necessity. At first, it really put me off. I mean, you might as well give players the option to choose, right? Well, without the shared XP, you'd be horrendously underleveled without doing a lot of extra tedious grinding, considering the lack of actual trainer battles. However, with it being mandatory, doing even a modest amount of grinding or simply spending more time actually enjoying yourself in the wild area will leave you
Wer hat das erste Video von ihm vorgeschlagen und niemand. Ich habe einfach das gesehen und ich habe gedacht, ja komm, da habe ich Bock drauf zu reagieren und dann, jetzt bin ich hier.
horrendously overleveled for the gym battles and
Hallo Marcel.
even the champion fight. It means that the mainline story overleveled for the gym battles and even the champion fight.
Ich dachte ganz kurz, der macht einfach das Zeichen so. Ich dachte, der macht gerade einfach Just Parsi.
Means that the mainline story is a little short on actual gameplay and much of the extension of it comes
Aber wieder, warum Legend Arceus scheiße ist, könnte ich machen, aber es wäre Arbeit und irgendwie habe ich da keinen Bock drauf. Irgendwann mal wahrscheinlich, aber ich habe momentan keine Lust drauf.
from the masses of dialogue that it spits at you. I feel like it has a poor balance of actual battles to story ratio and makes up for it by simply making it much easier to level up.
Wäre irgendwie geil. Ja, aber die Sache ist halt diese warum Pokémon scheiße ist Sachen, da muss ich gerade Bock drauf haben und gerade fühle ich es halt nicht. Ich mach's, sobald ich Bock drauf habe.
So yes, this game is easy, but it's also important to remember that the majority of the audience for this game aren't us man-children who still play these games well into their 20s. It's the far more casual market of actual children. Also, I know this is an RPG, but damn, there is a shitload of dialogue in
Neues DLC? Ja, ich habe gehört, es gibt so ein Legend Arceus DLC, da habe ich auch keinen Bock drauf. Just Party, was der Charakter steht nach Balduin.
this game. And apart from the time you spend out in the wild areas, it is constantly breaking up the gameplay and slowing things down. Unfortunately, it really seems to artificially lengthen the game, which is not ideal. The game also kept trying to remind me about all of its fancy new online features, and I bet those would have been cool too. If they weren't locked behind Nintendo's paid online, of course. In
Ich meine, Pokémon Schwert, nee, Pokémon Legend Arceus kriegt wahrscheinlich ein DLC.
terms of a story, it's your typical starting off in a town that only consists of
Aber das hier ist kein DLC-Video zu Schwert und Schild, das ist einfach nur ein Review von dem Typen zu Schwert und Schild. Und das habe ich mir gedacht, komm, gucken wir uns an. Vor allem, weil ich den Typen einfach an sich mag.
2 buildings and going on a Pokemon adventure along with your annoying shit of a friend/rival as you battle through all the gyms and become champion while stopping the bad guys and maybe catching a legendary creature of myth along the way. You know, the usual. There also wasn't really a team or criminal organization as part of
Mega
the story
langweilig.
either, and I was disappointed at the lack of a HQ or labyrinth to go through towards the end of the story. The only team was Team Yell,
Fick
and
die.
they were less a gang of criminals than they were a fan club. Remember when the teams in Pokemon used to do cool shit like tear apart the fabric of space and time or to try and completely wipe out all life and
Team Yell sind einfach nur Sims.
recreate the world? Well, now they're just CyberGoth football hooligans. I won't spoil anything, but the plotline didn't move or surprise me at any point.
Das Spiel durchgespielt und ich habe es tatsächlich bereut, weil ich ganze 150 Stunden für den Scheiß gebraucht habe. Für welches Game? Schwert und Schild? 150 Stunden? Was?
Although, in all honesty, the storyline isn't really what I'm looking forward to when I play a new Pokemon game.
Ich schon. Ich mag das Argument nicht. Ich sag, Gen 3 und Gen 4 hatten eine gute Story. Schwarz und Weiß 2 war mega geil. Heilige Scheiße. Wirklich Schwarz und Weiß 2. Ich mag zwar die Story aus Schwarz und Weiß 1 nicht, aber die aus Schwarz und Weiß 2, heilige Scheiße, ist die gut. Holy shit.
What I do look forward to is
Team Yell besteht aus Timos, true.
collecting my favorite Pokemon and building a team with them and then bringing over my teams from the older games to use once I've beaten the champion. Which is a shame because Game Freak decided to not let us do that. I think that the
5 Generalpunkte und ich habe es geschafft. Was wolltest du noch vorschlagen?
big issue with them cutting out over half of the Pokemon that exist is collecting all of the different Pokemon makes up such a big part of the game's identity. Not to point out the obvious or anything, but the series' catchphrase is gotta catch 'em all.
Das ist falsch, das war nur in Amerika, es war nie die originale Catchphrase. Es war auch nur in den ersten beiden Generationen, es wurde ab der 3. Generation entfernt, wenn ich mich nicht irre. Spätestens ab der 4., aber ich glaube schon bei der 3., weil das nur in Amerika der Fall war und die wollten das entfernen, weil das in Japan halt gezeigt wurde, dass die das nicht so ernst nehmen.
It's a massive disappointment for longtime fans of the series, and I think that it severely hurts the endgame. I would have really liked to use those perfect IV beasts I spent hundreds of hours grinding out on earlier games in
Versteh
the
ich.
Battle Tower. Visually, these games are like a good steak. A little undercooked. Realistically, other than the fact that it's in a higher resolution, there has been no real improvement made since Sun and Moon. Blatantly reused
Gott, das kurz geregelt bei dir, Creeman. Ruffy, wie viele Kanalpunkte hast du nochmal? Bitte, danke.
Pokemon models are render distance shorter than Minecraft played with 2 GB of RAM and even recycled character animations. There has been little to no enhancement or innovation on a visual
Ruffy
level,
zählt nicht,
and
doch.
the overall animation quality
170k, ach du Scheiße. Ich liebe diesen Mann.
is still very jarring in a lot of areas.
Oh my freaking god, his hand is moving slightly, but the ball is perfectly still. Oh my freaking god. Ich hasse diese Szene, ich hasse diese Szene. Ah, guck mal, sogar Indo. Nur 70k, aber trotzdem mächtig.
Yes, visuals are not the be-all and end-all of a video game, but this is no longer a portable title. The Switch is a home console, and Sword and Shield do not make use of its hardware. On a technical level, this game is
Warum ist das so scheiße nervig? Weil der vom Spiel echt scheiße umgesetzt wurde, aber der hat echt einen coolen Charakter.
severely lacking.
Toad auch sehr mächtig.
It's not even so much an issue that the visuals are bad, but this copy-paste content from
Bro, dieses Weihnacht.
previous versions of the game is purely lazy on Game Freak's part. And it makes you wonder if they
50k ausgegeben, 30k werden verloren. Nice!
just reused all of the models and
Ja, ich sag ja, Creeper, alles gut. Ich wollte nur sagen, ne? Also, Geringverdiener, vielleicht immer noch, aber trotzdem mächtig, danke dir.
animations
Gott, verdammt scheiße, du bist so oft hier, dass du 50k angesammelt hast. Mächtig. Support's appreciated.
from Gen 7
Generell in alle Support's appreciated. Alle, die das Video hier gucken und alle, die im Stream mit dabei sind. Danke, Leute.
What genuine excuse do they have for not including the national decks?
Ich hasse Professor Kukui.
Don't try and tell me that it's because Game Freak is just a small studio, because they're not. Pokemon is the highest grossing media franchise in existence. It's certainly not like they didn't have enough money to throw at these games. And you certainly can't push it off as a hardware limitation either, because the 3DS could fit over 800 Pokemon models and animations on it just fine. I'm sure the Switch
Ja, Toad wollten sie. Dann haben sie nach dem ersten Mal aufgegeben.
could pretty easily
Weil die meine Streams nicht mögen. Arschlöcher.
handle another 100 more, especially when, you know, they're exactly the same. This is either down to severe mismanagement from Game Freak, terrible game optimization, or an excuse to cash in on a sequel in the future.
Wahrscheinlich. Oder DLCs.
Or you know what? No, it's all three of those. Just give it another year or so. Game Freak will have heard all our feedback and taken it to heart, which is why they're bringing back the full national decks in the all-new Pokemon Rune two-handed sword and big-ass fucking Shield. Overall, after completing this game and having had a decent amount of fun, the latest entry to the Pokemon series has still left me feeling rather ambivalent. And I'm not gonna pretend that I'm not biased. Of course, part of the reason that I enjoyed this game is because it's Pokemon, and playing it is a method of escapism from the crippling reality that I will never be a child again. But I
Ich liebe
digress.
diesen Typen, Alter. Holy shit, der ist so geil. Ich feier den.
And while I think that Sword and Shield innovated enough to justify
Guck, Big Ass Perfect. Das würde ich spielen.
being a new addition to the series, you simply cannot deny that the game is lacking polish to a rather disappointing standard, and the pure fact that the national dex is missing for no genuine reason other than Game Freak's incompetence or greed.
Nee, heute nicht, Sorga Leo. Ich hatte heute keine Lust mehr auf irgendwelche, oh, scheiße, Legenden Arceus-Videos. Guck ich beim nächsten Reaction-Stream an. Das RGE-Video ist bei mir auch schon auf der Reaction-Playlist. Sehe ich jetzt hier, Hass- und Morddrohungen, Pokémon Legends Arceus. Aber heute habe ich keine Lust drauf. Ich bin ultra müde.
Is something that's very difficult to overlook. Going by what we should be expecting from modern game developers, especially those at the head of the highest grossing gaming franchise in existence, Pokemon Sword and Shield simply doesn't cut the mustard. I think that the actual enjoyability of the game is less of a concern than the amount of effort that went in on Game Freak's
Ich hätte noch ein großer Stuhlgang und ein kleiner Stuhlgang. Ja, aber nee, muss ja großer Stuhlgang und kleines Pinkel sein.
part. The Pokemon franchise has lowered to those same standards of FIFA and Assassin's Creed, where they have a formula, have a fan base, and then do as little work as they can while pulling in the cash. I wouldn't necessarily not recommend Sword and Shield, but you shouldn't expect it to be a groundbreaking title either. While it has its charms and brings a really cool new feature with its wild area mechanic, it's also a testament to lazy, rushed, greedy game development, and has me rather worried for the future of the franchise.
Ten out of 10.
Okay, never mind. This is the greatest game ever.
Ich liebe diesen Typen. Holy shit. Abonniert ihn doch bitte endlich.